Batter up.
Rob and Chris, they're on the air. Yankees, Mets, they're everywhere. From the Bronx to Queens, the diamond gleams. MLB talk, the ultimate team. MLB is the place to be. Rob and Chris with the pitch you'll see. Swinging stats and stories fly. Baseball talk that's amplified.
And welcome to a new episode of NY MLB Talk with your hosts, Rob and Chris. Super Bowl's over, football season's over, and that means baseball season starts. So what a way to start the baseball season off. We have a very special guest today. Rob, why don't you bring him on?
Yeah, we have Ken Davidoff. You guys remember him from the New York Post, Major League Baseball writer, loved his stuff. Always read you, Ken. Loved it. I mean, the Post always had the best baseball stuff as far as I'm concerned. And I was in the business for 25 years, so definitely welcome. We only have a half hour with Ken, so we want to get right to it. He has a new book out called 101 Lessons from the Dugout, What Baseball and Softball Can Teach Us About the Game of Life. And let's get into it. Ken, what do you want us to know about your book?
Thanks for having me, guys, and thanks for the nice words, Rob. And so the book is about the life lessons you can learn from the great games of baseball and softball, how you can carry those into your everyday life. It is targeted for younger readers, ages 12 and up, but I truly believe, based on the response I have received, that folks of all ages can enjoy this book and get something out of it, too.
Yeah, listen, I want to read it. I've been reading a lot of baseball books lately. A lot of our guests have books out. But what made you write this particular book? There was so many things you could write about. You've seen it all in Major League Baseball, especially. But what made you want to write a book about lessons from the dugout, geared towards kids?
Rob, you're right. Well, speaking metaphorically, I guess, or abstractly, I felt like I had seen it all in Major League Baseball, covering it for about 30 years, and I'd still do a little bit of writing on it. And I was really excited about the idea of doing something different, and kind of going back to the game at its most basic level, the 9 innings and the 3 outs and the mound and home plate and the on-deck circle, and writing a sweet, positive book about baseball. I mean, my job as a columnist was to be hard hitting, was to occasionally call people out or go after them in a professional way. And I have to be honest, I got burned out from that job. And so that's why I was so excited when this opportunity came my way to do something much, much different, but still about this game.
Yeah, and I see that the foreword is written by David Wright. How did you get David Wright to? I mean, of course, obviously you've interviewed David many times in your career, but how did you pick David Wright, and how did you get him to do that for you?
Well, yeah, I covered David really from the very beginning of his career. I think the first time I met Dave was at the 2004 Futures game in Houston when he was still in the minor leagues, and then I believe he made his major league debut about a week later after that. So I had a great affinity for David. I thought he was the real deal, a tremendous human being on top of being a tremendous ball player. And I knew he was leading a quiet life in Southern California, parenting and coaching his 3 children, girl, boy. And who better to connect to this book than someone who's coaching his kids and who played the game at the highest level. And when I pitched this to David, he quickly agreed to do it. And then when we talked through what the forward would actually consist of, I realized he was all on board for the message of this book. Like, he uses sports as metaphors in the same way that we do in our book. He uses with his own 3 kids and with the other kids that he coaches.
And plus, I mean, how more wholesome could you get than David Wright for a kid's book, really, if you think about it? So I definitely think that's a great choice. Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want to take up the whole conversation.
No, that's okay. I just want to let everybody know before I get into it with Ken here, that QR code in the top left-hand corner goes directly to his book. So it goes directly to the Amazon.com page. So if you want to purchase it, hit that right there. or wherever you buy your books. That's the book right there, just to let everybody know. Ken, just want to say, we've both been a fan of yours for, over 20 years, right? Obviously, reading your articles. Yes, we used to read the newspaper. I know this the newer age people never really read the book, read the paper, but just want to say that as well. But were there any like certain situations that you can talk about that did it click and say, oh wow, this is a good life lesson right here, not just about baseball but also about life?
So, Chris, I have to be honest. So, my co-author, Harley Rothbard, you can see he's listed first. The reason he's listed first is because this book was his baby. He came up with the concept of the book and with the specifics of the 101 lessons, and then he brought them to me. We have the same literary agent, Lisa Leshme, and then he kind of gave me wide latitude on, please impart the lessons you've learned covering the game at the highest level, and let's blend our two perspectives. Harley is a pediatrician who has dealt with children and their parents his entire life. So we'll blend our two perspectives. But yeah, so Harley came up, he first produced the idea and the specific lessons, and then I offered my 2 cents. So that's how we got to that point.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris. I got a couple of things I want to ask him, but if you want to get something.
Good. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. To get away from the book for 1 minute, I just, since we don't have that much time, we want to get your thoughts about the Mets really quickly, the Mets offseason and the Yankees offseason so far.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably, if I were to give letter grades, I would give the Mets a B+ because it sure seemed like they needed to blow things up. I'm just not sure letting Edwin Diaz go to the Dodgers was part of that necessary implosion, and I do have significant questions about Devin Williams' ability to close in New York. And I would give the Yankees a B because I don't mind the running it back idea. They had a very good team last year. I'm just a little surprised they haven't gotten another pitcher or two, starter and relief, with higher floors. They have some guys with really high upside when you look at Weathers and kids in their farm system. But it seems to me they could use a little more certainty, particularly in their starting rotation, given the fact that Cole, Rodon, Schmidt will not be on the opening day roster.
Yeah, Chris, I'll let you take that one since you're the Yankee guy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Ken. I'm totally fine with them running it back. I would want to see them strengthen the bullpen a little bit, add another arm or two, because there's guys there where there are question marks, obviously. But I think everything else, yeah, I'm okay with them running it back. You're running back a team that was tied for the American League in wins last year. So it's not like they're running back a team that barely made the playoffs or didn't make the playoffs at all. So, but we'll see. But Ken, looking back at your time covering the Yankees, we'll keep it to the Yankees for a second. You went through like different. I mean, they were always winning, thankfully, but the late 90s, early 2000s, you had that great run. Then they were still successful, but they didn't have anywhere near, winning the World Series. And then these last few years, obviously, same type of thing, winning but falling short. How was it different covering the team those 3 years? Like Torrey, then Girardi, then now Aaron Boone. Like how different were those three?
Well, they were all dramatically different, Chris, for many reasons, and primarily because the media industry changed so much over that time, right? I mean, Joe Torre was a godsend for the media. Like, he gave us so many stories, and God bless Joe. Like, if he had said something in 1998, if he said something at his 4:00 news conference, it didn't get full coverage until like the next morning, the newspapers the next day, because there was an internet, but it wasn't like it is now, and there was no social media. So that's the biggest difference to me, is just how the media world has changed and how things now can just mushroom very, very quickly. But beyond that, going specifically to the Yankees, look, I think that the 96 to 2000 group was a magical group, if you want to say 96 to 01. And I'm just not sure it could ever be replicated. When you look at all the individual pieces and how they got there, and and who they were and the characters. Like, look at Paul O'Neill. Paul O'Neill was happy to be traded to the Yankees because it was less pressure for him, right? Because he was a hometown Ohio guy struggling with the Reds, with the pressures of playing for the hometown Reds. Oh, getting traded to the Yankees, what a relief. So that's a pretty unusual circumstance, and obviously it paid off very handsomely for the Yankees. And you look at Jeter and just what a remarkable person he was to handle the New York spotlight. You look at Mariano Rivera and his incredible story, from, I forget his signing bonus, like $5,000 or less. And you can really go piece by piece with that group. Andy Pettit, and then the veterans who came in, Cone and even Clemens and Wells when he was there, El Duque. And I just don't think, those guys, what happened was those guys got old, right? Like that 2001 team was on fumes. They somehow finished within 2 outs of winning again. But it was time to move on. And really, since then, the Yankees haven't figured out to get together another group like that. And the other element is, and I don't say this to take away anything from that 96-01 team, because they deserve all the flowers that they get. But the other teams were behind. Like the Red Sox were a mess. The Orioles were spending money back then, but the owner, Angelos, kept interfering. The other teams couldn't really figure it out. And then National League, the Braves were great. My God, they have so many Hall of Famers now, right? But they just were always missing something, whether it was bullpen piece or just couldn't quite cross the finish line there. So what has happened in the ensuing years is all these other teams have figured it out. And now obviously the Dodgers are just a titan of the industry, and very curious to see whether they can win a third straight.
Yeah, they definitely are. Things are definitely changing in MLB, and not for the better. I wanted to ask you about Pete Alonso. Now, we know David Stern has to mold this team into his team. The core was not working. Nimmo, okay, I understand the Nimmo trade. Diaz, I really think the Mets wanted to keep Diaz. I think Diaz just wanted to go to the Dodgers. His brother pitched for the Dodgers last season, talked highly about the Dodgers, and Diaz wants to win a world championship. So I think he just felt that he had a better chance with the Dodgers because the Mets would have offered him more money. He didn't give him the chance. But Pete Alonso, do you think what do you think about the Mets really not even pursuing Pete? Do you feel Pete should have been a lifetime Met like David Wright? What are your opinions about Pete signing with the Orioles?
Yeah, in a vacuum, Rob, yes, Pete absolutely should have been a lifetime Met. He is obviously the franchise record holder for most home runs, which he just did last year, and he could handle the heat. He was born and drafted a Met and grew up a Met and seemed very comfortable in the New York spotlight. The problem was once they signed Juan Soto, then they kind of filled up that DH spot for the coming. Right. Sooner than later, Juan Soto is going to be a full-time DH, and so then what do? Like you have him and Alonso there. It's just not going to work, and teams need players who are athletic and can field the position. And in a fairer world, Pete would have stayed with the Mets and played first base for another year or two, and then pivot over to DH. But you have Soto standing there, and then the defense overall was a liability, as we know. So Here was an opportunity to improve their defense at first base. Now, whether they actually did remains to be seen with Polanco.
Yeah, well, Polanco, they have a first baseman who's only played one game in the major leagues at
one
first
pitch,
base,
right?
Yeah, that's it. So, how's that improving? And to tell you the truth, Pete really did improve. He did improve. He was much better. He was much better at scooping up the baseball. And we've had Mickey Callaway on the show a bunch of times. And right when the trade happened, he said, that's the signing, not the trade. I'm sorry. The signing happened. Mickey said to us, that's one guy I think that the Mets just should have kept. But you're right about the DH. But remember, Soto also has all those opt-outs too. So who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, you're right. But I think for coming off last year and the disaster it was, they needed to blow some things up, right? And Pete, for better or worse, was not under contract. So he was an easy decision in that context to jettison.
Yeah, and maybe hiring Boris, for Pete, I guess it was good because he got the deal that he wanted, and he deserved to be paid. One more quick thing about the Mets and Diaz, like I mentioned, what do you think about Diaz? Do you think Diaz just was set on going to the Dodgers, and that's why the Mets couldn't re-sign him?
Rob, that's a very good, fair question, and I'm going to give you a good, fair answer. I don't know. I'm just not. I wasn't plugged into that specific situation. I didn't really get a good read on that. But that, I think it stunned many people far more than the Alonso departure did, or even the Nimmo Semien trade.
Yeah. I just think that, of course, Nimmo, Diaz, and then Alonso signing with the Baltimore Orioles did shock Met fans, and now I think they're coming around, with the other moves the Mets made. So I think your grade's fair. Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Ken, let's get back to the book again. Just remember the QR code is right there if you guys want to purchase it, or Amazon.com. You could go to yourself or Barnes & Noble. What was the process? How long did it take? Did you interview coaches? Did you interview players to get more feedback? Like, what was the process about?
No, the process, Chris, we kept it pretty insular in that sense. We just I was the coach player of the relationship. I had more real world interactions. So, and my co-author Harley was very respectful of my perspective, but we kind of just we didn't want to get caught up in anecdotes from professionals. We just wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So really just Harley had a completed manuscript when I saw it, but he let me go to town on it, when I just offered up many thoughts, and occasionally we would talk things through, and sometimes I would concede and let it stay as is, but oftentimes Harley would concede and let me change some things. Always very above board, very respectful. But it was really just getting to a place where we were both honoring the game, in the way both of us saw it, while also making sure we were addressing, directing this to young people, to readers ages 12 and up. So it took about 6-7 months of really digging in there and editing, and then there's just the process of shopping at the publishers and all that.
Ken, the time that you were writing for, you also wrote for Newsday and the Bergen Record and the Post. In the beginning, of course, there was print media. Everybody read the paper, and then we got to this internet, the websites and everything. Was it a hard process from you to go from print media stuff to what we have today?
It was, Rob. I feel like I adjusted pretty well, but I just feel like something gets lost when you have to crank it out immediately, and as opposed to taking time to think about it and let it settle in. Oh, and there's this nuance and this layer. Let me make one more phone call or text this person. And I fully get it because the public demands and deserves immediacy, right? It didn't make sense that when Joe Torre said something at 4 o'clock in 1996, no one would know about it until 7 a.m. the next morning. It makes far more sense that people know about it at 4:01. I think I was pretty good at adjusting, but I didn't enjoy it as much, Rob. Like I really enjoyed breaking news. I didn't mind that part of it, but when it came to let me just take a minute with my thoughts here. Like it was challenging to do that because obviously the sooner you could get it out there, the more read it would be.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I've spoken to a lot of sports writers who feel the same way. But some of us, and I guess we're old school, we just miss having that newspaper in our hands. I mean, you still could get it, But
Yeah.
and listen, I'm one for I love the quickness of everything now. With the signings in the off season and the trade deadline, I'm on there all the time. Obviously for the show, but still personally I would be there. Right? Chris, you would agree with me, right? You like the
yeah.
quickness of it.
Yeah, but I also miss, being on the train in the morning and, and reading the newspaper, instead of looking at my phone or whatever. So yeah, it's just a different, it's just a different way of life now. Ken, were there any moments, players that have stuck out to you, that you've covered, favorite or non-favorite for the other side too, that you could give us a quick talk? We only got a few more minutes left with you. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, yes, Chris. And many moments, many players. I'll let the bad stories die.
yeah.
I mean, when you ask me, people ask me all the time, who's your favorite player to cover? And that list would include David Cohn, who's just so remarkable in his ability to help the media while not betraying his teammates in any way. I loved Hideki Matsui. Like, he was such a pleasure to cover. Such a superstar in his home country who really made an effort to engage with the American media. David Wright has to be up there. Curtis Granderson with both teams, just such a joyful human being. Like, I'd always joke though, you could walk up to Curtis and pop a paper bag in his face, and like he wouldn't blink and he wouldn't stop smiling. Like, he was just so unshakable and so well built to handle New York. So those off the top of my head are probably that'd be my Mount Rushmore of favorite guys to cover.
Let me bring up something. Of course, it's sad. 9/11.
Yeah.
When baseball came back and Piazza hit that home run against the Braves, can you give us your thoughts about riding at that time, and how that one game and that one moment affected you personally?
Yeah, so Rob, at that juncture, I was with Newsday and I was covering the Yankees. I was the Yankees beat writer. So I was not at Shea Stadium that night, but I certainly followed it from afar. And every time I watch that video now, like, I get emotional. Like, I do. Because I was living in New Jersey at the time. I knew people who died in that building. And actually my father very well could have, had he gotten a job at Cantor Fitzgerald that he wanted, he might have died in that building. He didn't get the job, so he wound up living another 13 years. I reflect back on the Yankees October run, and especially World Series games 4 and 5, with game 4, the Tino home run down to their last out ties the game. And then game 5, the Barocious home run down to their last out ties the game. And that Barocious home run, I remember, like, I stood up in the press box. So only 2 times in my whole career do I remember, like, standing up out of shock in the press box. That was the first time. And I remember I got emotional because you could just feel it in that stadium. And my job was to be stoic and not care and not be emotional, but just feeling the energy of that crowd and thinking about the people I had known who perished on 9/11. I definitely got choked up just being there for that.
Yep.
Yeah, and the script, we thought the script was going to be different. Rivera just losing that game. We didn't expect that. I know what that did to Chris. Even as a Met fan, and back then, I was probably a Yankee hater. I did not want to see that happen because of 9/11.
It was probably the one year I think the Yankees were actually being cheered on by non-Yankee fans, right? In that World Series. I think everybody wanted to see the Yankees win, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out that year. But all right, Ken, I seen this picture on the day you retired. They had this cake for you. Give us a quick story about this.
Oh my goodness! Look at
you, bro.
The craziest thing is, it's been almost 4 years since that picture was taken. I'm so much more relaxed and happier, but my hair has turned so gray. So I don't understand that. I don't know if you guys have any perspective on that. Like, how come my hair is getting gray when I'm so relaxed? But yeah,
You're
that was
distinguished. That's why.
so yeah, not your problem anymore. I think that says.
Yes.
So that was in Jupiter, Florida. The last week of my career, I covered labor talks. It was the lockout right before the 2022 season, and they met at the Cardinals and Marlins Stadium down in Jupiter, and they had, I think, 8 days of negotiations. And this had to be on either the 7th or 8th day, where the other writers also on site got me this Carvel cake, and that was like that story in particular. That was heavy lifting. It was working your sources and trying to figure out, all right, who's bluffing and who means it, and how close are we to an agreement. And I remember feeling great happiness that day that I was done with this job. And 4 years later, I have to say I have zero regrets. As much as I've loved talking about the old days, and I'm so happy to have written this book about how much I love the game of baseball and softball, I do not miss the daily grind of covering the baseball industry.
Yeah, that's tough. Chris, why don't you give he's got to go in a couple minutes. Why don't you give him our famous last question there?
Yes. All right, Ken. We'll have to give you the last question. I'm going to put the book up again, just so everybody knows. And you got the QR code up in the corner there. Takes you directly to the book. We asked this last question to all our guests. If you were named MLB commissioner today, what changes would you make to the game?
That is a great question, Chris. All right, let's see. What would I do? Gosh. All right. So we're not talking about like labor stuff, right? We're not talking about salary cap. We're talking about like rules, the actual game.
A little bit about whatever you would do.
Whatever you would do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, labor stuff has to be negotiated with the union. So I won't touch that. But let's see. I would get rid of the Manfred Man, the runner on second, in extra innings. Or all right, you know what? Since I'm thinking on my feet here, let's move that to the 11th inning. How does that sound? Instead of the 10th or the 12th. Let's say the 12th inning.
Okay.
The 12th
That's
inning.
fair.
All right. So we'll do that. What else am I doing with it? I'm bringing the shifts back. Shifts are back.
Okay.
That bothered me. Like shifted on Ted Williams. So what's the problem? Like no one complained back then. At least no one's still alive who would know. So I'm gonna bringing back the shift, and I am making it illegal for any Yankees fan to say, "I wish George Steinbrenner was still around." You will be thrown in prison if you say that.
Great. Yes, I'm with you, Ken, on that. How many times we hear that? Oh, if the boss was here, this wouldn't be happening, or this guy would have got fired, or this would have been traded. So
all the time. But anyway, all right, Ken, thank you. Everybody buy his book. I'm going to read it. So this way, Ken, if you want to come back after I read it and we could talk more about your book, we definitely, we would love that. And we just appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate having me on. Sorry I have to jump.
That's okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, have a good flight. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, safe flight.
All right, guys. So that was Ken Davidoff, who wrote for the Post. Check out his book. You got the code. You got the code up there. And all right, Chris, let's get into what's going on in Major League Baseball. Right now, there's been some moves. What's going on with the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Hey, you know what? They're spending money, and I'm sure their fans got to be happy about it, right? That they're actually spending some money. They're trying to get better. They're trying to compete. So I love it for them. I think it's great. To me, what it's showing a guy like Paul Skeens, right? Like, hey, listen, we're going to spend money. Like, we're not going to spend Dodger money or Met money or Yankee money, but we're going to spend some money. But we're going to try to get better here, and let's see how it goes. So maybe they're trying to entice him to stay in Pittsburgh a little bit. That could be a part of this.
Yeah, I don't know if they could afford him. All right, so let's talk about their latest move, Chris.
Yeah, I liked it. Getting Ozuna. What is it, $10 million, and then they got a mutual for
12 million. It's 12 million. It's 12 million.
Okay, and then they got a mutual option for the second year. So I think it's great. You know what? This is a guy that could, hit some home runs, 30, 40 home runs a year if he stays healthy. I think he could do it. The only bad thing to it for me, at least from afar, it looks like McCutcheon's days are over in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah,
Are
it
they going to
does.
bring him back? I think if the DH spot was open, I think you'd still see McCutcheon come back maybe for one more year. McCutcheon's been one of my favorite players during his era, non-Yankee players. So I'm going to hate to see him go, but that's probably the only bad part of signing Ozuna, if we look at it that way. But otherwise, I love the deal.
Yeah, I think it's showing me that the Pirates, at least finally the Pirates are doing something. They got to fill up that beautiful ballpark. That ballpark is one of the most beautiful ballparks in Major League Baseball. And these short contracts, I really think it does have something to do with what might happen after this season with the lockout. I think it's going to be a long lockout. I hope not, but I think so. What does Joe say? I know how to build a great Mets and get players from the New York Jets. Except they're not baseball players, Joe. They're football.
Hey, I'm with you about I hope it's not going to be a long work stoppage coming up. I would hate to see that, but yeah, it kind of looks that way because to me, and I think I've said it already, but the union looks really bad that they came out and said, we're not going to, we do not want a salary cap. Like, we're not going to even talk about that. Like, how do you go into negotiations and you're knocking off, one of the major points? You could just say, listen, I have no comment about it. We're going to talk about everything and whatever. But now it makes them look like they don't want to negotiate whatsoever. And I don't think that's a good, look for them right now.
No, I think that's a problem too. I just think we're in for it, so we better get a lot of guests for this show.
Yeah, we'll be doing a lot of top 10 lists and greatest players for each franchise. So be prepared next off season. We'll get into that.
All right, in other baseball news, Keith Hernandez signs a 3-year extension with SNY. All Met fans are happy. That keeps the booth together. Chris, I figured this was going to happen. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it's great. To keep that the team together, the group that you guys got there in the booth, I think it's a great thing to do. They are great at what they do. Are they the best? Yeah, I think the Yankee guys are great too. So I think we're both fortunate enough to have, awesome commentators for the games for the Yankees and the Mets. So, but I think it's great. Everybody loves Hernandez. You never hear anybody say anything bad about Hernandez, right? So, for you guys, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, because Hernandez just says what's on his mind. So that's what everybody loves. He has no filter. So
yeah,
everybody definitely loves Keith. And we got a couple of unfortunate deaths here that I got to bring up. 1968 World Series MVP Mickey Lolich, who also played for the Mets, I'll get into that for a second, passed away at age 85. He was the MVP, like I just said, in 1968 in the World Series. He pitched 3 complete games against the Cardinals, Chris, in that World Series. Could you imagine that? 3 complete games in a World Series. The last one was up against Gibson, and I believe the score was 4-1. Just think about that. In a World Series, 3 complete games.
I can't. Yamamoto came close last year, this past, and that was, that was remarkable what he did, right, in the World Series. We thought that was amazing. And this guy throws 3 complete games. And, some guys don't even throw 3 in a whole season, let alone in a series, a 7-game series. So that's pretty amazing. We could talk about it forever, but we're not going to see stuff like that anymore. We're not going to see the 300 win, career games anymore. We're not going to see the 600 home runs, maybe not even 500 home runs after Stanton gets to 500, but who knows? Just some of these, especially pitching, the complete game, shutouts, all that stuff, 20 plus wins. It's just, stuff that we're just not going to see anymore.
No, I agree. Now, Mickey Lolich, okay, the Mets, one of the worst trades in New York Mets history, December 2nd, 1975. The Mets trade Rusty Staub, okay, to with Bill Laxton to the Detroit Tigers for Mickey Lolich and Billy Baldwin. All right, Rusty was at his prime then. Rusty was a fan favorite. He was my favorite Met, like I've told you a bunch of times. And that trade was just stupid, trading for an older Mickey Lolich who was basically done. So I'll never forget that. Of course, Rusty came back a couple of years later and was a great pinch hitter. But that was one of my worst all-time Met trades, getting Mickey Lolich, for Staub. He went 8-13 with the Mets. 3.22 ERA. The ERA wasn't too bad, but he didn't get along with the pitching coach. All right. So what happened the next year? He just left baseball. He opened up a donut shop.
Good for him.
And then a year later, he signed with the Padres and he finished out his career. But by that time, he was finished. And another sad, because this guy's young, Terrence Gore. He's another one of these guys, 3-time World Series champion. All right. It's unbelievable. He just passed away at age 34. His career numbers: he batted .216, 0 home runs, 1 RBI, but he had 43 stolen bases. He was basically a pinch runner. But he was a 3-time World Series champ with the 2015 Royals, the 2020 Dodgers, and the 2021 Braves. He's like one of those guys who got 3 rings. Some of the greatest players in baseball history didn't even get to play in a World Series. This guy has 3 World Series rings, Chris.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. It's pretty sad that he passed away. I think it was a botched surgery or something like that, right? It was supposed to be a regular surgery. I mean, he was young, like he said. I mean, 34, right? 35, 34.
Yeah, 34.
Yeah. But like you said, if you got a skill, you're probably going to last, they're going to find a spot for you somewhere. And obviously speed, they'll find a spot, especially in the playoffs, if they need a pinch runner or something like that. Not as much as in years past, right, with the pitchers hitting and you needed a pinch runner and stuff like that. So it's probably died down a little bit, but you know what? When it comes to playoff time, you're always going to get that. You're always going to get that one spot on your roster that you're going to save for like a pinch runner late in the game and stuff like that. So it's just a sad story to see, to hear about this guy die, and 34 years old. It's very sad.
Yeah, it is very sad. And he finished his career with the Mets in 2022. That's how, he just played recently.
Yeah.
He had 7 at-bats with 1 run and 1 hit for the Mets, and then I guess he retired. But yeah, you're right. Specialty players like that. In the 70s, the Oakland A's, when they won those 3 World Series, Finley signed this guy, Herb Washington. And he was just basically a pinch hitter for the Oakland A's. I think he was a runner in school. Didn't even play the field at all. I don't even think he got an at bat. But he was a base runner, a specialist, and he was with the Oakland A's in the 70s. But you don't really see that much anymore. And yeah, Dan agrees with you. And I agree too. We're never going to see a 300-game winner.
No. You're just not, and it's sad. Just look at a guy like Paul Skeens, a young guy. Is he going to win 18, 19 games a season for the next 10 or 15 years? Is he going to get enough starts to get that many? There's so many, there's so many no decisions now for these starting pitchers too, because they go to the bullpen too, much quicker than they ever have. So it's a totally different game. I mean, unless they start changing rules where, you're only going to go 4 innings for a start or something like that. But I don't think it's going to change. So I don't think we'll see a 300 winner for a very long time.
Yeah, or if ever. I mean, the way things are, I don't even think they're strong enough to do that anymore. All right, the Red Sox. Why don't you tell us about the Red Sox trade that they just made with the Brewers?
Yeah, they picked up Caleb Durbin from the Brewers. Now, Caleb Durbin was the guy that we sent over in the Devin Williams trade.
Right.
So that was interesting. So now he's going to Boston now. in that trade. It was the full trade is the Red Sox received Durbin and Andrew Monasterio
Yes.
and infielder catcher Anthony Siegler. That's another former Yankee prospect, and a selection in the competitive balance round B of the 2026 first year player draft. And the Brewers received left-handed pitcher Kyle Harrison, who was in the Devers trade last year, who was a big-time prospect with the Giants. Shane Drowan and infielder David Hamilton, who was on the Red Sox lineup. So I think it's good for both teams, right? They both needed exactly what they got. So I think it's interesting. Like, to me, Kyle Harrison is the more interesting one because he was a high prospect, very top-level prospect with the Giants. And for the Red Sox now to come around and turn, and to trade him away, a big left-handed starter, you would think they would hold on to. So the Brewers might know something that they could turn this guy around because he hasn't really shown yet in the majors that potential that he has. So we'll see. A's have traded. Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Okay.
Yeah, Max Schumann to the Yankees in exchange for minor league right-hander. To me, what this kind of tells me, because Schumann could also play the outfield, he's a shortstop. To me, it shows that it's possibly the end of Cabrera on the Yankees, or at least he's going to be sent to AAA to start the season because they're basically the same type of player, and Schumann is a much better shortstop than, say, Cabrera was. So, I don't think there's going to be enough room for all these guys, and I don't think they traded him to send him down to AAA, right? So I think he's that last utility piece, utility role type player that they were looking for their bench, right?
Right.
So I think that's what that means. At least that's my guess right now, unless, injuries happen, obviously, in spring training, and they go with these guys and whatever happens. But to me, that signals Cabrera is going to start the year in AAA, and maybe, it looks like obviously Spencer Jones and Dominguez as well.
Yeah. Let's get back to that Red Sox trade for a second. Durbin finished third in the National League Rookie of the Year, something like that. I think that's a good trade for the Red Sox. That we talked about this the other night with Armin, and by the way, Armin did a great job. We had a lot of fun with Armin as a guest on Friday night, Chris.
Yep. Yeah, that was awesome. We had a great time.
Yeah, and Armin, your clips are doing really well everywhere. So one on YouTube is doing really well. So thanks for that. But Boston, that National League East, we talked about this the other night. That's going to be a beast, Chris. The American League East. I mean, the American League East is going to be a beast right now. They just keep everyone's improving.
Yeah, I mean, the top four teams, obviously, you can make an argument for every one of them to win that division right now. That's how good those four teams are, and the Rays are going to be pretty good too. They're not going to be this bad team that you're just going to say, oh yeah, that's an easy win. Those are going to be easy wins hard wins to come by against Tampa as well. So when Chris on vacation is yeah, thanks.
Chris is pretty good,
coming, right?
when I'm on vacation, Chris is pretty good. He doesn't badmouth the Mets.
No, I wouldn't do that.
He doesn't do that.
Yeah, no, but I think you're right. I think the American League East, it's going to be really tough. I mean, you've seen the Yankees and the Blue Jays both win 94 games last year. I don't know if you're going to get two teams winning 94 games again in that division. That's how good it is. I mean, listen, we don't know what's going to happen with injuries because we've seen that happen last year. So anything is possible. But right now, when you look at these teams, those top four teams could easily win 90 games. But mathematically, I don't think they can because, they're all in the same division. So, injuries are going to happen to teams. It's just a matter of what guys get hurt and how many of them on your team and, how you could, fill in with these guys too. So it's going to be a great season, man. It's going to be a really great battle in those top four. And I'm not leaving Tampa out when I say the top four because I think Tampa is going to be good too. They're just not, I think, in those top four teams. But, man, that's going to be easily the best division in baseball.
Yeah, it is. And listen, and the National League East is going to be pretty tough too. But you do have the Washington Nationals that the Nats are gonna finish last. Marlins, you never know with the Marlins. They're always pesky. They especially against the Mets. They always do something to ruin the Mets at the end of the season. So let's hope that a page is turned and that doesn't happen again. But I think the National League East too is one of those divisions. But I really think it's going to be the Mets and the Braves. I think, and we spoke about this the other night, and we spoke about it a lot. I just think the Phillies have gotten old, and they really didn't do much. They really so far. I mean, there's a little time left. The Phillies haven't done much, Chris.
No, they haven't. They haven't done anything really. I mean, they're just. I think they're just. You talk about the Yankees running it back. I think they're running it back too. Yeah, I don't know if two teams are going to win 90 games. I really don't. I don't see it happening like it did last year with two teams winning 94 games. It just doesn't. I don't think the Nationals. I know Armand said the Nats and the Marlins are going to be. I think the Marlins are, but I don't know if the Nats are. The Nats don't look good at all this year. They're rebuilding once again, right? After the Soto trade, they thought, with those guys that they got, they were going to, take the next step, but obviously they didn't, and they ended up trading most of those guys now. So now they're rebuilding once again. As sad as it is for National fans, they're back to where they were when they traded Soto, trading away the superstar, hoping these prospects are going to be good in a couple of years and maybe they can make a run. But until then, the Marlins have done that. So now they're kind of at that, okay, are we going to take the next step? Are we going to become a possible playoff team this year? Like last year, they made some moves, in this offseason, they made some moves. Now, can they make that next step? And I think that's what we're going to learn this year.
Yeah, we'll have Rick Lewis come on for a segment to talk about the Nats, but he can't be too happy about what's going on with the Nationals. I mean, just rebuilding again and again, and I don't know. That's why I think the American League East is going to be tougher. And like we said with Armin the other night, the Blue Jays have to be the favorite until they're knocked off. The Yankees. What do you see? Do you see the Yankees going into not only spring training but the season with the team they have now, or do you think there's still going to be some moves before opening day?
I think you might see another trade or two, but it's going to be something like this. It's not. I don't think a major trade is coming, because I think most of the spots now are basically done. Right? They added Goldschmidt over the weekend, and he looks like that last piece. Or now this guy Showman looks like he's going to be the last piece of the bench. I think the bench is set. I think the lineup is set. I think it's going to come down to, do they add maybe another arm or two to the bullpen? Maybe. But I think they're set with those guys too that they added, during the offseason. And even last year with Jake Bird, I think they're expecting him to bounce back. They're expecting Winquist that they picked up in the draft from the Cardinals. They're expecting him to be a major piece, not a major piece, but a piece in the bullpen. So I think this is it. I'd like to see them add more to the bullpen. To be honest, to me, that's their biggest question mark. You want to go with this lineup? That's fine. This is a lineup that won 94 games last year. I'm totally fine. The pitching, we got decent depth, with the rotation. And you got Rodon coming back in early May, and then you got Cole coming back in June, maybe even July. But with those guys coming back and what they have, and also with the minors, I think they're set with starting pitching. I think it's the bullpen that needs something maybe, and you never know, what happens by the end of spring training. But I think the major moves are done. Those are the kind of moves I think we'll see. I think same thing with the Mets. I think the Mets are more or less done. What do you say about the Mets?
Yeah, I think, unless they do something where they tweak it, or unless there's an injury. But I think so. So do you think, let's see, let me just see what Armin said before I go on with my thought.
Yeah, that was a big signing, I thought, for the Rays, bringing in Martinez. I liked him. He's a guy that could swing from the starter to a bullpen role, so that's a really good one. Fetty, he hasn't been much in the last couple of years. So that's taking a flyer with that guy. And Martinez is a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bigger move for the Rays than Fetty is with the White Sox. The White Sox just added a bunch of guys, right? So that kind of
Right.
almost like Pittsburgh, but they're not going to have, they don't have the pitching that Pittsburgh has. But yeah, they made some moves, they're doing something. You got to like that, especially as a fan, you got to appreciate that they're trying. It's tough though,
Yeah. I mean, they've made moves, and like you said, not moves that like the Yankees or the Red Sox or Toronto would make, but they made some decent. They're showing their fans at least that they're trying. They're making some moves.
Yeah.
There's nowhere but up for the White Sox, so they had to do definitely had to do something. But let's get back to the Yankees for a second. If you had a choice right now, what one player or what one position would you tweak right now if you had to?
Oh, I think it's easy. I'm adding a strong bullpen piece, not some guy that might be good, or something like that. I would add a strong bullpen piece to this team. I think that's the question mark. Even two pieces, but if I'm going to add one, I would go after one of the guys that the Padres have in the bullpen, either Morjan or Estrada. To me, one of those guys for me would be the guy. I think Morjan's a left-hander, throws hard. That would be the guy I would go after. I'm sure he's not available because he's young and, he throws hard. So I doubt if he's available. But if there was a way to get him, that would be the type of player I would want. A power left-hander, because that's something we don't have, right? Tim Hill is in the bullpen, but he's definitely not a power left-hander. He's reliable, yeah, but I would love to get another left-handed relief pitcher. If it was perfect circumstance, that's the type of pitcher I'd want.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Armin put that Chris Pavick.
Marlins. Okay, yeah, that's not bad.
No, that's not bad. And remember, getting back to the American League East for a second, that Tampa Bay is back home. Okay, no more spring training or minor league stadium for them. They're back home. I mean, the Trop is not great. And did they make any? Did they make any improvements besides the roof?
The roof. I think outside the roof, I don't know. I don't think they did much. I'm sure they had to improve the field, right? Because the field probably got damaged from the bad weather and stuff with no roof. Lefty, and it'll be so. Oh yeah, there you go. So maybe they're going to wait for him to become a free agent. I would think the Yankees would be all over that guy, but we know next off season is going to be, who knows? So big question mark. But yeah, I'm sure the Marlins did something to it. But I know they're in the process of trying to build a new stadium down there. So maybe they don't want to, invest too much money into the Trop right now, because if they're going to build a new stadium, they probably want to put more money into that. So, like you said, it's not a great place to play. The players go in there, but you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah, but Mickey Callaway did say that the clubhouse is great at the Trop, remember?
Yeah. I guess that's a good thing, for the players, but I think on the field is not the best.
No. It's not. And also, I don't get it. Like, could they support really it? They don't get a lot of the same thing with the Marlins. They got these stadiums, especially the Marlins have that stadium. It's a nice stadium. It's not in the best area, but these teams just can't, even when they're always in it. Remember the Marlins won 2 World Series. They can't fill these places, Chris.
It's just not a baseball town, right? Like they're a big football and college football town. Simple as that, right? Those teams will always do well and all that, but it's just not a big baseball town. Like nobody's going to a game in the middle of the summer when you could probably just go to the beach, right? You got so many other better options than going to a baseball game in the middle of the summer, especially for a team that, no disrespect, but the Marlins have not been good, right? Yeah, they made the playoffs in the COVID year, but other than that, I mean, in the last decade or so, they have not been good. Yeah, they won 2 World Series, but that was over 20 years ago, right? So it's not in recent times, and like you said, they just can't fill that place. The Marlins got a brand new stadium, and the attendance there is what, less than 10,000 people every game. It's embarrassing for Major League Baseball, and now for the team, now for Tampa. Oh yeah, we're going to build a new stadium and all that. I don't know if it's going to do much for down there. It just doesn't make sense.
No, that's why I think with they're having expansion, which, if you think about it, they can't fill some of these other stadiums. But like Nashville, I think Nashville will get a pretty good crowd. I think that's going to be a pretty good crowd for baseball there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. Estrada's under team control. So of course the logic is trade Yankees, send Dominguez and Chase Hampton for Estrada. Yeah, Yankees probably wouldn't do that, but yeah, I mean, what they would probably do is go after Morjan, because he's going to be a free agent after this season, right? So maybe they would go after him instead, and maybe just give up Hampton for him. I don't know. It just really depends on how much they like him, obviously, to give up a couple of top prospects for him. So. But it'll be interesting, if, like I said, if those are the type of pitchers, not those specifically, but definitely those type of pitchers for me is what I would be looking for the Yankees. Getting back to that question.
Yeah, and Joe Dell says, well, it's around 100 degrees, and yeah, well, in Miami, the Trop has a roof, but Miami has a roof too, right? So, right.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. So then, that's not really the problem. A lot of it, I think, is because people who move to Florida, there's a lot of people who move from New York and the East Coast. So they're fans of the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox. So whenever the Yankees play Tampa, they get crowds, right? The Marlins do better when the Mets are there.
Or when Boston or the Mets. Yeah, when a good team gets in there, they do get crowds, but you want to get crowds all year. You want to get at least 20, 25,000, in the place, right? I mean,
right.
To me, it's just like we get back to expansion. Like they should have moved Tampa out of there, right?
I agree.
The Marlins, they built a new stadium, so they're not going to move them yet now because it's, they just built a new stadium. So with Tampa, this was a great time to do it. So obviously, if they're building a new stadium, they're not going to move them out of there. They want them down there. So,
Yeah, it makes no sense. You want to put up that the Firestone Premier thing for me, Chris? All right. Our friends at Premier Auto and Tire Center, 2109 Forest Avenue, Staten Island, New York. If you need work done on your car, go check it out. They're going to give you 10% off your next service or repair. They do a good job. My car was in there today, and I was in and out within like 20 minutes. It was really fast. Go see Jonathan. Jonathan's a big Yankee fan. He likes the show. He's a friend of the show. So if you're in the Staten Island area, go check this place out, and they'll give you 10% off your next service or repair if you mention NYMLB Talk.
I think that's awesome. If you're in the Staten Island area, that's the place to go to. Any of the Yankee fans, he's probably not going to, he's probably not going to screw you around on prices and stuff like that. He's probably going to take care of you. Just walk in there with a Yankee sweatshirt on or something. So this way it'll, if you go in there with the Mets, maybe he'll think twice. But
yeah, he yelled at me. He's like, you guys more Mets than Yankees. He said you've had on, but what are you going to do? All right. So check them out. And yes, Lone Depot Park has a retractable. I know. And
there you go.
It doesn't, it just doesn't matter. Like I said, it's not in the best neighborhood. So at night it's kind of sketchy,
right.
But you know what? I think if Nashville gets a team, I think they'll do very well, but who knows what's going to happen. That, we could have a lockout for a whole season, which is really going to, it's going to be bad. So enjoy baseball, enjoy this season. Let's hope that we have a great season and you can enjoy it. Anyway, Chris, you got anything else? Because the hour, as usual, went fast and,
No, just the usual. Listen, if you guys, thank you for joining us in the comments and all that. If you're joining us on YouTube, If you can, hit that sub button. We'd appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. Hit the like button as well. We usually hear Mondays at 3 and Friday nights at 9 o'clock. We got some guests lined up. Rob has some really great guests lined up. We can't wait to get them on here. And listen, whoever else wants to join us, we had Armand one night. If anybody else, if you're a fan of a team, Yankees, Mets, or any other team, if you want to come on and talk some baseball, the door's always open for any guest to come on. So hope you guys want to join us.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, we've had Oriole guys, we've had Red Sox guys, right? We've had Cincinnati Red guys, Washington Nationals. So we don't care what team you root for. If you're a fan, come on, we'll talk baseball with you. And we do have a bunch of ball players that are coming on. I'll announce more. So join us Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm not sure if we're going to have a guest or who the guest is going to be. And let's thank Ken Davidoff for coming on. He was really great for that segment. Check out his book, 101 Lessons from the Dugout. Check it out. Read that book. It sounds like it's pretty good.
The QR code is right up there. If you want to take it, goes directly to Amazon.com and right to the book. So you could, if you want to purchase it, it's right there, or Barnes and Noble, or wherever you get your books.
Thanks, Joe Dell, and we will see you guys Friday night, 9 p.m.